Introduction. The modern creator's hamster wheel. Look at your screen. Look at that timeline in your editing software. Cut, paste, adjust the audio, add the effect, render, upload the file. Look at the retention metrics, refresh the page. Feel the hit of dopamine if the arrow is green and pointing up, or the knot of anxiety in your stomach if the numbers plummet. And tomorrow the machine demands to be fed again. Welcome to the modern creator's hamster wheel. You started this because you had something to say, you had a vision. Perhaps you wanted to talk about the mind, unravel the mysteries of quantum physics, share personal development concepts, or simply open new paths of knowledge for others. You wanted to be a bridge between the invisible and the visible. But at some point along the way, the operating system hacked you. They convinced you that you are an assembly plant. They told you that the algorithm is a choleric and capricious god that must be appeased with daily sacrifices of content. They told you that if you stop posting, if you step out of the mold, or if the system decides your content is repetitive and cuts off your monetization, you will fall into absolute irrelevance. You are operating from brute force, burning out your nervous system in front of the keyboard, trying to squeeze ideas from a brain screaming for rest. That is not creating. That is surviving in cyberspace. This is where pure metaphysics collides head-on with the harsh reality of your hard drive. Creating a work, a video, a book, or a channel is not about inventing something out of thin air by sweating blood. Ideas are not manufactured, they are tuned. They are latent frequencies of information in the quantum field. You are not a factory. You are an antenna. Your job is not to force the machine until it breaks, but to keep the receiver clean and calibrated. When you operate from lack and fear, fear of losing views, fear of not billing, fear of being forgotten, the static noise blocks the signal. You contract your cognitive bandwidth, disconnect from the natural creative flow, and end up producing soulless mechanical replicas. You end up burning out. This book is your exit ticket from that wheel. Here, we are not going to talk about temporary hacks to trick the algorithm or cheap 5-second retention tactics. We are going to talk about the invisible architecture of real creation. We are going to teach you how to use the physics of attention, the thermodynamics of effort, and radical detachment so that your ideas crystallize into matter with the least possible friction. You are going to learn how to be a conscious creator, someone who masters the art of anchoring high-frequency information in the physical world, building a legacy of value that survives the tyranny of ephemeral trends. Stop running blindly chasing digital validation. It is time to stop the wheel, step off, and start building for real. Chapter 1. The ether and the antenna, where ideas come from, and the myth of the tortured genius. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know it exists. Nikola Tesla. Ideas are disembodied, energetic life forms. They have consciousness, they have will, and their sole purpose is to manifest in the physical world. And to do so, they need a human collaborator. Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic. You are sitting in front of your brand new 16-inch screen. The video editing program is open. The timeline is empty, or worse, it contains a jumble of clips and audios that, no matter how much you look at them, seem to lack a soul. You intend to create something great. You want to talk about personal development, the law of attraction, the quantum physics that shapes our reality. You want to open new paths of knowledge, whether for your Spanish audience or for those who listen to you in English. But you can't think of anything. You squeeze your eyes shut. You rub your temples. You try to squeeze your brain, hoping a drop of pure genius will drip from it. You tell yourself, I have to invent a brilliant script today. It has to be original. It has to retain the audience in the first 5 seconds. Hours pass. All you get is a tension headache and a mediocre draft that you know won't work. Welcome to the myth of the tortured genius. Our culture has taught us a fundamental biological and physical lie. We believe that ideas are generated inside the brain. We believe that the brain is a factory, a combustion engine that, if you feed it enough coffee and stress, will produce innovative thoughts. And when the factory doesn't produce, you blame yourself. You think you've lost your touch, that you're not creative enough, or that everything has already been said on the internet. In this chapter, we are going to destroy that limiting belief. Pragmatic metaphysics and quantum physics propose a completely different model of the creative process, a model that will instantly free you from the pressure of having to invent. Your brain is not a hard drive that creates files out of nothing. Your brain is an antenna. Ideas are not born in your neurons. Ideas exist in the field, in the ether. Your only job is to tune into the correct frequency to capture them. The ether, the quantum field of possibilities. To the materialistic skeptic, saying that ideas float in an invisible ether sounds like New Age quackery. But if you ask a quantum physicist about the nature of information, they will give you a surprisingly similar answer. The universe is not empty. What we perceive as empty space is, in fact, boiling with energy and potential. In quantum mechanics, we speak of the zero-point field, an ocean of infinite superimposed possibilities. In this field, there is no linear time or space. All information, every script, every melody ever written or yet to be written, exists there in a state of potential, like probability waves. Ancient Hindu mystics called it the Akashic Records, a cosmic library containing all the knowledge of the universe. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, a deep network of archetypes and information to which all human beings are connected. Regardless of the name you prefer, quantum field, ether, the cloud, or the source, the functional concept is the same. Information is out there. A brilliant idea, for a book, a business model, a viral video, is a specific frequency of information. It is an energetic entity seeking to densify, to move from the state of a wave, invisible, to the state of a particle, matter. But an idea, alone in the quantum field, is powerless. It has no hands to type, no voice to record audio, no software to edit. To materialize, the idea needs a carbon avatar. It needs you. When you have a eureka moment, you haven't created the idea. What happened is that your biological antenna accidentally calibrated to its exact frequency. That's why great ideas always feel as if they come from somewhere else. They surprise you. They move through you. Many artists admit that, upon reviewing their best works, they feel they didn't make them, that someone else dictated the content. It wasn't someone else, it was the ether. And you were a good channel. The antenna, your biological hardware. If the universe is a radio station broadcasting infinite frequencies of ideas 24 hours a day, your brain is the radio set. What does it depend on whether you catch symphonic music, brilliant ideas, high-impact content, or just static and noise, writer's block, repetitive thoughts, anxiety? It depends exclusively on the tuning of your antenna, and the tuning of your antenna is determined by your brain waves. Neuroscience classifies the electrical activity of your brain into different frequencies. Beta waves, 1230 Hz. This is the state of active wakefulness, alert and stress. It is the frequency of survival, linear logic, and critical analysis. When you are worried about paying bills, arguing on social media, or forcing yourself to write, you are in high beta. It is a very useful state to avoid getting hit by a car, but it is terrible for creating. In beta, the bandwidth of your antenna contracts enormously. You only capture known information oriented towards survival. Genius cannot enter here because the static of fear is deafening. Alpha waves, 812 Hz. This is the state of alert relaxation. It occurs when you close your eyes, take a walk in nature, or finish a task and breathe deeply. The static decreases. The antenna unfolds. Theta waves, 48 Hz. This is the threshold between the subconscious and the conscious. It is the state you are in just before falling asleep, upon waking, or in deep meditation. In theta, your brain loses the notion of time and identity, the I. This is the direct download channel from the quantum field. Why do you think the best ideas of your life have come to you while taking a hot shower, driving on an empty road, or the instant your head hit the pillow? It's no coincidence. In those moments, you stopped trying to think. You stopped forcing the machine. Your brain dropped from beta to alpha theta. The static of stress went silent. You tuned into the correct frequency, and the idea that had been haunting you for days entered cleanly, like a notification on your phone. Third, static and fear, why you get blocked. Now let's talk about why you spend most of your creative time in high beta, blocked and frustrated. Let's talk about the noise. You are in your studio, you want to record, but in your head there is a voice buzzing. It is the fear of the algorithm. You have seen other creators fall. You know close cases, perhaps even in your own family, where the system, with its cold algorithmic bureaucracy, decides to label a channel of pure knowledge as repetitive content, and with a blind stroke withdraws monetization after years of hard work. That ghost haunts you. That fear whispers, you can't make a mistake. You have to be original, but not too much. You have to please the machine. When you sit down to create with that fear in your chest, your limbic system turns on. Your brain perceives the keyboard and the camera as threats to your economic survival. You flood your body with cortisol. You skyrocket to the highest possible beta frequency. In that state of panic and contraction, it is physically impossible to tune into a brilliant idea. The frequency of fear of lack and the frequency of quantum creativity are diametrically opposed. The fear of being labeled repetitive, the fear of not innovating, ironically leads you to create mediocre content. It leads you to overanalyze, to imitate empty formulas of others who are successful, and to lose your unique voice. You become a logical processor instead of a receptive antenna. Sometimes the environment takes it upon itself to break this toxic cycle by force. Imagine you are in the middle of an agonizing rendering or forcing a script, and suddenly, a sudden power outage plunges everything into silence. The router turns off, the equipment fans stop, the screens fade to black. Your first biological instinct is anger, frustration, but if you manage to get through those first few minutes of tantrum, if you surrender to that blackout and simply sit in the silence of your house, the magic happens. Without the screen emitting blue light, your brainwaves are forced to slow down. The static disappears, and often in that imposed stillness, the solution you had been seeking for hours reveals itself with insulting clarity. The physical blackout caused the blackout of your beta waves, and the antenna started working again. It's IV, the responsibility of the channel, the metaphysical contract. Understanding that you are an antenna takes away the weight of invention, but it gives you a much greater responsibility. The responsibility of maintenance. If you are not the generator of the idea, but the channel through which it passes, your only sacred duty is to keep the channel clean. A plumber doesn't create water. He ensures the pipes have no rust or leaks, so the water reaches its destination with pressure. You are the plumber of cosmic inspiration. When you don't take care of your body, sleeping poorly, eating junk, you rust the pipe. When you don't take care of your mind, consuming toxic content, engaging in useless debates, living in constant complaint, you fill the pipe with mud. Then you sit down to try to materialize a video, and you wonder why the flow is thin and weak. The ether is sending oceans of water, but your pipe is blocked. Furthermore, there is a cruel and beautiful rule in the universe of ideas. Ideas are promiscuous. Since they are energy seeking to manifest, they do not belong to you. They have an affinity for you because your antenna resonates with their frequency, but if you do not act, the idea will grow tired of waiting. It will realize that you are a passive receiver, a channel blocked by doubt or procrastination. And it will leave. It will travel through the quantum field until it finds another antenna that is willing to work. Have you ever had an incredible idea, done nothing about it, and 6 months later seen someone else publish exactly that? They didn't steal the idea. The idea abandoned you for logistical incompetence and went with a more efficient collaborator. The metaphysics of the creator does not forgive inaction. V-tuning protocols, cleaning the antenna. The conscious creator does not sit and wait for the muses to descend from heaven. The conscious creator executes daily radio engineering protocols to keep their antenna calibrated in the alpha and theta frequencies, minimizing beta noise. Here are 3 pragmatic tactics to tune the ether at will. 1. The RAM flush, the morning dump. The greatest obstacle to receiving new signals is that your working memory is full of pending tasks, unresolved anxieties, and yesterday's internal dialogues. There is no space on the disk for downloads. Practice. Every morning before turning on your phone, take a notebook and a pen. Write 3 pages of everything that crosses your mind, without a filter, without structure. I'm sleepy. I'm worried about the car payment. I don't know what to do with my channel. Get it all out. By putting it on physical paper, you pull it out of the loop of your prefrontal cortex. You have freed up gigabytes of space in your antenna. Now you are ready to receive. Tozal's active incubation, the art of walking away. Trying to resolve a creative block by staring at the screen is like trying to open a door by pulling it when the sign says, push. The more brute force you apply, the more it gets stuck. You have to learn to use the subconscious mind, which processes millions of data points per second. Practice. When you get stuck, get up. Leave the room. Do a manual, repetitive task that requires zero intellectual effort. Wash the dishes, walk aimlessly, sweep the floor, shower. This tactical distraction distracts the security guard, your logical ego, and allows the warehouse workers, your subconscious, to make the quantum connections. 3. Judgment-free capture, the passive radar. An antenna captures the signal, it does not judge it. Judgment is a function of the subsequent editing software. If you judge an idea the moment you are receiving it, you short-circuit it. Practice. Always carry a capture system with you, a small notebook or your phone's voice recorder. When a lightning bolt of intuition hits you, a stray phrase, a strange concept, a crazy title, note it immediately without evaluating it. Don't say, "This is too repetitive." Simply catch it as if you were a stenographer of the universe. Save that signal in a drawer. There will be plenty of time in Chapter 2 and Chapter 4 to apply logic, friction, and relentless editing. But in the reception phase, judgment is poison. Chapter 2. The collapse of the wave function, from energy to matter, the physics of getting your hands dirty. Anyone who is not shocked by quantum theory has not understood it. Niels Bohr. An idea not executed is a betrayal of the universe. Perfection is the excuse of cowards for not materializing. Law of the pragmatic creator. You have a vision. You close your eyes and see it with absolute clarity. It is a monumental project. Perhaps it is an ecosystem of YouTube channels, one for your Hispanic market and another that crosses borders, tracing paths of knowledge in English. In your mind, the videos are perfect. The editing rhythm is impeccable. The music enters at the exact frame, and the message transforms lives. In your mind, that idea is a masterpiece. It has no audio glitches. It doesn't suffer because of the algorithm. It requires no physical effort. It floats in a state of absolute purity. But then, you open your eyes. You turn on your laptop. The cold aluminum of the 16-inch machine reminds you that you are in the physical dimension. You open your software. The cursor blinks, and suddenly you feel a crushing weight in your chest. The idea, which 5 seconds ago was light and brilliant, now seems like an immovable mountain of granite. Doubt sets in. You click a few times, drag a file, and realize the video clip doesn't look as good as you imagined. The audio has a slight echo. Perfection is broken. Fear paralyzes you. You get up to make a coffee and abandon the project for when you have more inspiration. What just happened? You just collided head-on with the most implacable law of quantum mechanics applied to real life, the collapse of the wave function. In this chapter, we will understand why ideas are perfect while you do nothing. We will see why analysis paralysis is literally an attempt to keep the universe on pause, and how to become a professional collapser of realities to stop dreaming and start building. The physics of possibility, the hell of waves. To understand the creator's anguish, we must travel to the subatomic world. In classical physics, Newton's physics, apples falling, things are what they are. A stone is a stone. It is either here or there. But in quantum mechanics, at the subatomic level, particles do not behave that way. Before being measured, they are different. Before being observed, particles like electrons do not exist in a single place. They exist in a superposition of states. They behave like a probability wave. This means the electron is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It is pure potential. It is a range of infinite simultaneous possibilities. Your idea exists in this state. As long as the idea is only in your head, it is a probability wave. In that wave, your video is a viral success with millions of views. In that wave, it is an absolute failure. In that wave, your channel is praised for its depth. In that wave, you are demonetized for repetitive content. All possibilities coexist simultaneously. Because they coexist, the idea in your mind is perfect. It contains the seed of absolute success. The ego loves this state. The ego loves living in the world of waves, because there is no physical failure there. There are no critics in the comments, no technical problems. Everything is unlimited potential. But there is no impact. You cannot pay for food with a probability wave. No one can learn from a video that exists in a superposition of states in your mind. For the idea to interact with the three-dimensional world, the wave has to die. It has to collapse. Thus, the observer effect, the act of typing. In the famous double-slit experiment, physicists discovered that when they fired electrons toward a wall with two slits, the electrons behaved like waves, passing through both slits at once. But when scientists placed a detector, an observer, to see exactly which slit each electron passed through, the magic disappeared. The simple act of observation forced the electron to choose. The probability wave collapsed, and the electron began behaving like a solid particle, passing through a single slit. Attention collapses energy into matter. As a conscious creator, you are the ultimate observer of your own universe. But in the macroscopic world, it is more. The observer effect is not just looking, it is acting. It is directing your conscious attention and motor effort toward the idea. At the exact moment you put your fingers on the keyboard and write the first word, at the exact moment you drag the first clip to the timeline, boom, the wave function collapses. The infinite, perfect, and multidimensional idea dies, and in its place a particle is born, a physical file, a three-dimensional product. And here is the tragedy that causes many creators to quit. The particle is never as beautiful as the wave. Matter is dense. It has friction. Human language is clumsy and limited. When you collapse the wave, you are forced to choose a single version of reality, discarding infinite others. And that version is often stained by your current lack of skill, your fatigue, and limited resources. This disappointment is natural. It is pure physics. Matter is rougher than energy, but the immature creator scares easily. The immature creator collapses the wave, sees that the first draft is ugly and gets scared. This was not my idea. My idea was brilliant. This is trash. And they delete the file. They take refuge in the world of waves again, dreaming of being great, but refusing to materialize. Thread analysis paralysis, the fear of collapse. The fear of collapsing the wave manifests in many ways. The most common is analysis paralysis. You spend weeks researching, you read 20 books, you watch hundreds of hours of tutorials on lighting, voice equalization, and thumbnails. You look for the perfect camera. You adjust software settings over and over again. Your mind tells you that you are preparing. You convince yourself that you are working. It is a lie. You are delaying the collapse. You are terrified that when you finally export that file and upload it, the universe will return a mediocre result. There is an even darker fear, the fear of punishment by the system. Perhaps you know firsthand the pain of investing months of energy into a channel only for a cold algorithm to take away monetization under the excuse of repetitive content. Those kinds of blows traumatize the creator. They generate a quantum scar. From that moment on, the fear of making a mistake multiplied by 1,000. You start operating from paranoia. What if I use this resource and they penalize me? That fear keeps you suspended in the ether. You prefer to publish nothing rather than publish something that fails or is punished. But physics is implacable. Zero movement equals zero heat. Zero heat equals the thermal death of the system. If you don't constantly collapse waves, your creative energy stagnates and turns into resentment. The conscious creator knows that collapse always hurts a little. They know the first version will be ugly. But they also know that you can only edit a particle. You cannot edit a wave. You must materialize trash to polish it. V. Densifying energy, the thermal sweat of the render. Let's talk about the physical process of densification. Bringing an idea down from the ether to matter requires thermal energy, literally and metaphorically. When you are assembling pieces of information, you are forcing the entropy of the universe to reverse in a small corner of space-time. You generate heat. The fan of your machine begins to roar. The processor heats up. You sweat, your back hurts, and your eyes burn. You are feeling the resistance of matter. The inertia of the three-dimensional world is brutal and often seems to have a perverse and sadistic sense of humor. Sometimes this inertia takes the form of an obstacle. You are in a flow state, about to finish a heavy rendering that has taken hours, and suddenly clack, a power surge or a sudden blackout. The screens fade to black. The UPS starts beeping desperately. Silence floods the room. In that instant, the probability wave threatens to dissolve back into nothingness. The unconscious creator throws the mouse against the wall, curses the country, the power system, and the universe, and abandons the project. The conscious creator breathes. They know this is simply the physics of resistance. The physical universe is dense and hostile to rapid changes of state. Friction is the toll. If the file is lost, you start again. And curiously, the second time, because the neural network already traced the path, the assembly is faster and more precise. The blackout forced a second iteration that improved the particle. The collapse of the wave function is not glamorous. You must be willing to go down into the mine. The launch, releasing the particle to the universe. The final moment arrives. You have overcome the friction. You have survived the blackouts. You have polished the particle as best as your current skills allow. The file is rendered. The title is written. The blue publish button stares at you. This is the second collapse. Until you publish, the file is still yours. It is a particle confined to your hard drive. There still exists a small superposition of states regarding the public's reaction. Maybe people will love it. Maybe they will hate it. Clicking publish is the ultimate act of metaphysical detachment. It is taking the energy you downloaded and giving it back. The moment you press the button, the work stops belonging to you. It becomes an independent entity that will interact with the minds of millions of other biological antennas. Sometimes the particle explodes and creates a chain reaction. Sometimes it falls into the void and disappears in the ocean of noise. This is where the creator's ego suffers again. If the video fails in metrics, the ego says, "I'm a failure." Lie. The conscious creator understands that their work ends at the moment of the click. The result belongs to the law of probability, the algorithm, and the chaos of the system. Your only duty was to collapse the wave. You already did it. You are free. Total detachment from the result is the only armor that will protect you from burnout. If your personal value depends on the retention arrow being green, the fear of the next collapse will be too great. Your antenna will rust. You will return to the beta waves of permanent panic. The protocols for collapsing waves daily. If the key to the game is materializing energy, without stopping before the fear of imperfection or the punishment of the algorithm, you need offensive tactics. Here are 3 protocols to force the collapse of the wave function in your daily life, bypassing the mental blocks of your frontal lobe. 1. The trash draft, the nausea protocol. The main enemy of the creator is the blank page because it represents the infinite wave. The technique: give yourself legal and moral permission to write or edit the worst trash possible for the first 10 minutes. Don't try to make sense. Throw video clips on the track anyway. Write the script with typos and insults. Tell yourself, the goal of the next 10 minutes is to create the worst product in the history of humanity. By doing this, you instantly eliminate the fear of failure. You are failing on purpose. But the miracle occurs. By dirtying the timeline, the wave collapses. Matter is already there. The brain moves into correction mode. 2. Quantum Parkinson's law, unnegotiable time limit. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself a month to edit a 10-minute video, it will take a month of suffering every second. The technique: use time scarcity to force quick executive decisions. Cut your deadlines in half. Use a timer. Urgency shuts down the perfectionist frontal lobe. 3. The burn the ship ritual, acceptance of risk. When the fear of demonetization or penalty for repetitive content paralyzes you, you have to apply reverse psychology. The technique: before sitting down to create, assume the project has already failed. Assume the algorithm will punish you. Accept the worst-case scenario. Accept the death of the project before birth. Take a deep breath and say, even if this content is penalized, I will materialize it because the idea deserves to come out of the ether. By accepting the death of the project, You take away the algorithm's power to terrify you. You stop creating for the machine and return to creating for the idea. The wave collapses. Seso, the beauty of imperfection, quantum wabi-sabi. To close this concept, you must reconcile with matter. Matter is flawed. Thermodynamics teaches us that entropy always increases. Things tend toward disorder, decay, and heat loss. Your physical creations will never live up to the perfect Platonic archetype that lived in your mind. But in that imperfection lies human value. An artificial intelligence can and will generate sterile, polished, and mathematically perfect content to hold attention. But the human craves texture. They crave the slight voice delay, the tilted framing, the deep breath before a difficult concept. The human resonates with the creator's struggle. The Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi celebrates the beauty of the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. Your collapsed work is wabi-sabi. It is beautiful precisely because it is limited by time, by space, and by technology. It is beautiful because it is the visible trace of your battle against nothingness. Chapter 3. The Laser of Attention, Your Creative RAS and the Art of Seeing the Invisible. What you see and what you hear depends a great deal on where you are standing. It also depends on what sort of person you are. C.S. Lewis. Attention is the most valuable currency in the universe. Where you place your attention, you collapse probability into reality. You are the director of photography of your own existence. Law of the Pragmatic Creator. You sit in your studio. You open your 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, the machine that has accompanied you through so many rendering battles, and you stare at the screen. You have to record. You have to feed the beast. You have your Spanish channel, and you have the Paths of Knowledge in English, both hungry for new content. But the mind is blank. You feel like you've already said it all, that all the concepts of quantum physics and self-improvement have already been chewed, digested, and regurgitated by thousands of creators before you. You feel the creative drought scraping your throat. You get up, go to the kitchen, and look out the window. You see the street, the cars, the routine. There is nothing inspiring out there. The world seems like a gray, boring place, devoid of brilliant metaphors. You return to your chair, frustrated, convincing yourself that today there is simply no inspiration. That is the biggest lie the human brain tells itself. There is no such thing as a lack of ideas. There is no such thing as a lack of inspiration. The physical and quantum universe is screaming information every millisecond. It is raining knowledge, patterns, and revolutionary concepts directly onto your head at this very moment. The problem is not that there are no ideas. The problem is that you are blind. Your blindness is not a defect, it is a survival feature of your biological hardware. And in this chapter, we are going to hack that feature. We are going to enter your brain's control panel and reprogram your internal bouncer, the reticular activating system, RAS. We are going to turn you into a sniper of attention, capable of finding metaphysical gold in the trash of everyday life. The biology of blindness. What is the RAS? To understand why you can't think of ideas for your scripts, you have to understand how much information you are ignoring right now. At this exact moment, your senses are being bombarded. Your eyes catch photons bouncing off every object. Your ears catch the hum of the hard drive, the wind at the window, your own breathing. Your skin feels the texture of your clothes, the pressure of the chair, the air temperature. It is estimated that the human nervous system receives around 400 billion bits of information per second from the environment. If your conscious brain, your frontal lobe, had to process that amount of data, it would explode. You would go insane instantly, overwhelmed by an unbearable cacophony of colors, sounds, and sensations. To prevent your brain from frying, evolution installed an ultra-aggressive spam filter at the base of your skull, in the brainstem. It is called the reticular activating system, RAS. The RAS is the bouncer of your mind's nightclub. Of those 400 billion bits of information, the bouncer only lets about a measly 2,000 bits per second into the VIP area, your consciousness. This means that 99.99999% of reality is being censored, erased, and eliminated from your perception before you even realize it exists. And how does the RAS decide which information to let through and which to block? It is based on two strict and primitive rules. Survival. Anything representing a physical threat, a loud noise, an object moving fast toward you, passes the filter immediately. Programmed relevance. Anything you have told your brain is important to you. This second point is the key to creative mastery. Have you ever decided to buy a red Honda Civic and suddenly, upon going out, you start seeing red Honda Civics everywhere? Did the Honda factories agree to flood your city that day? No. The cars were always there. But before to your RAS they were irrelevant noise. By deciding to buy one, you labeled it as relevant, and your RAS began letting them pass into the VIP of your consciousness. What you focus on expands, not by magic, but by basic neurology. The universe is not sending you more red cars. It is your biological filter that has stopped hiding them. Thus is the creator on the defensive when the RAS is your enemy. This is where the theory becomes painfully practical for a content creator. If the RAS shows you what you focus on, what do you think happens when you focus on fear? Suppose the ghost of demonetization haunts you. Perhaps you are very mindful of what happened to the channel Mente Transcendental, sunk by the relentless policies of repetitive content. That event acts as a trauma in your creative ecosystem. Without realizing it, you program your RAS with a lethal instruction. Look for threats, look for similarities, be careful not to repeat. The algorithm is going to punish us. From that moment on, your RAS becomes a paranoid auditor. You sit down to write about the law of attraction or quantum physics, and every idea that pops up is intercepted by the bouncer. No, this sounds like what we said 2 months ago. No, this looks like the video from that other channel. Careful, this is repetitive. The result is total paralysis. Ironically, the obsession with avoiding repetitive content locks you in a mental cage where your creativity dies of starvation. You operate from the defensive, and a creator on the defensive does not innovate, they only survive. Your RAS, calibrated to find algorithmic threats, will relentlessly filter any spark of risky genius, leaving you only with the most insipid, safe, and boring ideas, which, tragically, generate the least retention. You are using a military precision laser to aim at your own foot. Thirdly, calibrating the laser, the metaphor hunt. The conscious creator takes manual control of the RAS so that you never lack ideas for the paths of knowledge or for your Hispanic ecosystem. You have to give clear and proactive instructions to your nightclub bouncer. You have to order it to look for opportunities, connections, and metaphors. Content on metaphysics, personal development, and quantum physics can become dry or ethereal if you only talk about theory. The audience does not connect with abstractions, they connect with their own life. The pure gold on YouTube is not in explaining the double slit experiment by reciting Wikipedia. The gold is in explaining the double slit experiment using a daily and visceral anecdote. And to find that anecdote, you need your RAS example of reprogramming. Imagine giving this instruction to your mind in the morning. Today, I want to find a visual explanation for the concept of entropy and quantum chaos. You release the instruction and forget about it. You step away from the MacBook. Hours later, you are in your living room. You watch your 2 children play. They have taken all the toys out of the boxes. What was an orderly space 10 minutes ago is now an absolute chaos of Lego pieces, cars, and stuffed animals. If your RAS is in survival stressed parent mode, you will only see a mess, feel irritation, and think, I have to clean this up. But because you have calibrated your RAS to metaphysical creator mode, suddenly, the bouncer lets a brilliant connection through. You see the rug and think, bingo, this is entropy. The universe naturally tends toward disorder because there are infinitely more ways for toys to be messy than for them to be tidy. Restoring order requires injecting energy into the system, just like materializing an idea requires energy to collapse the wave. You have just found the perfect human and visual hook for your next script. The idea didn't fall from the sky. The idea was lying on the living room floor. Your RAS simply allowed you to see it. The magic of being a creator is not inventing new worlds. It is seeing the same old world with eyes programmed for wonder. IV, chaos as a paint canvas when the lights go out. The true mastery of the RAS is demonstrated when external circumstances are hostile. We live in an entropic, physical, and often brutally inefficient universe. Things fail. Imagine you are in the middle of a spectacular workflow. You are focused, the editing flows, the music fits, and suddenly, a power outage. The power is cut. The screens go dark. Silence fills the room. An uncalibrated RAS would react with blind fury. Not again. This country is a disaster. My day is ruined. I've lost 20 minutes of rendering. The focus is on the loss, on the victim, on stolen chronological time. But what does an RAS calibrated by a conscious creator do? It redirects the laser. In the middle of the physical darkness, the creator breathes and observes the metaphor the universe has just slapped onto their face. The power went out, the machinery stopped, the noise ceased. Is this not exactly what Buddhism calls the void? Is this forced interruption not a representation of the zero-point field, where there is no activity, only latent potential? Instead of sinking into anger, you take a physical notebook or the battery-powered phone recorder and record an audio in the dark. Guys, today I was editing and the power went out. In that total silence, I realized how our mind reacts to the void. You have just transformed a frustrating logistical failure into a high-retention video about chaos tolerance and detachment. Your ability to create content is directly proportional to your ability to focus the laser of your attention on the opportunity hidden within daily tragedy. Everything is material. Everything is content. If your RAS is well configured, there are no bad days, there are only days with unexpected plot twists. The Tetris effect, the creative infection. In psychology, there is a documented phenomenon called the Tetris effect. In the 90s, researchers noticed that people who played the video game Tetris for many hours straight began to see the world in strange ways. Upon going outside, they looked at skyscrapers and imagined how to fit them together. They looked at boxes in the supermarket and mentally rotated them to fill the gaps. The brain had become stuck on the game's recognition pattern. It had optimized its neural pathways to process all visual reality through the Tetris filter. The goal of the conscious creator is to induce a deliberate Tetris effect, focused on the creation of impact. You have to train your brain by playing the Tetris of ideas until you cannot turn it off. When you reach this point, your life changes. You are reading an economics book, and your RAS extracts a principle that applies perfectly to metaphysical vibration. You are watching a movie, and your RAS dissects the narrative hook of the first 10 seconds for your YouTube retention. You hear a couple arguing in a cafe about who is right, and your RAS sees a live example of ego projection and Jung's shadow. Everything becomes a giant database of interconnected references. Blindness disappears. You stop being a passive consumer of reality and become a predatory hunter of metaphors. Best of all, the anxiety of the blank page evaporates forever. You will never again sit in front of your 16-inch computer not knowing what to talk about. Your problem now will be the opposite. You will have so many ideas collapsing your notebook that you will have to decide which ones to discard. That is the problem of kings. So are the languages of the universe, crossing cognitive borders. You have a tactical advantage many creators ignore. You play on two boards. You operate in Spanish and English. You manage different ecosystems. At first glance, translating a script seems like simple dictionary work, but at a neuro-linguistic level, it is a quantum leap. Languages are not just word codes, they are filters of perception. The structure of English favors direct action, pragmatism, and quick impact, perfect for raw retention. Spanish favors nuances, emotional depth, and meandering philosophy, perfect for connection and community loyalty. When you force your RAS to think about complex metaphysical concepts for the paths of knowledge, you are forcing your brain to distill the idea to its purest, most universal form. The cultural noise falls away. The bone of truth remains. By cross-feeding your channels, you cross-reference information. The pragmatic clarity required by your English-speaking audience improves the structure of your Spanish scripts, cleaning them of fluff. The emotional depth of your Spanish channel injects soul into your English videos, differentiating you from robotic creators who only seek the click. Your bilingual RAS acts as a particle accelerator. By colliding the two languages, you generate creative sparks a monolingual creator could never see. Harness that linguistic schizophrenia. It is your quantum superpower. 7. Daily calibration protocols, cleaning the lens. Knowing you have an RAS is useless if you don't configure it. If you leave the default setting, the RAS will be hijacked by news, fear, the algorithm, and daily stress. Here are 3 operative cold and mechanical protocols to calibrate the laser of your attention every morning. Protocol 1. The priming question. The prefrontal cortex is lazy but responds spectacularly well to direct questions. If you ask it a question before sleep or just upon waking, the RAS will spend the day scanning reality to answer it, like a bloodhound given a garment to smell. Action. Write on a post-it and stick it to your screen frame. Where is today's metaphysical lesson hidden? Or more specific, how can I explain the wave function collapse using an object I touched today? That simple question turns on the background search engine. Protocol 2. The input diet, frequency shielding. If your RAS is a filter, the material you filter matters. If you spend 2 hours doom scrolling on TikTok, absorbing drama and cheap controversies, you are filling your perception funnel with radioactive trash. Your RAS will assume controversy and complaint is what's important. Action. Protect your mornings as if your life depended on it. The first hour of the day, 0 passive consumption, only high-frequency inputs. Read a dense book of philosophy, listen to a quantum physics audiobook, or stay in silence. Feed the beast caviar, and the beast will return gold. Protocol 3. The buffer dump, the capture notebook. The brain is a wonderful machine for generating ideas, but a terrible hard drive for storing them. If your RAS detects a brilliant connection and you tell yourself, "I'll write it down later," you have just murdered the idea. Within 2 hours it will be gone. Action. You must externalize your RAS. Use your phone's notes app, or better yet, a small paper notebook in your pocket. Capture the idea on the spot. 2 words are enough. Messy toys, res quantum entropy. Once it's on physical paper, your brain relaxes and the RAS is free to hunt the next piece. Faint the ultimate truth about stealing ideas. One of the silliest blocks a creator suffers is thinking, "I can't talk about this because Joe Dispenza already said it, or because Eckhart Tolle already wrote it." Let's go back to physics. The quantum field is the same for everyone. The information is the same. Universal truths are immutable. The only thing that changes is the angle of the laser. No one has a monopoly on truth. Tolle focused his laser from the tranquility of German mysticism. Dispenza focused his laser from chiropractic and neuroscience. You are focusing your laser from your own trench, from your story, from the power outages, from raising 2 children, from your bilingualism, from nights spent rendering in front of a screen. Your audience doesn't need you to invent a new metaphysical concept. They need you to take the eternal truth and illuminate it with your specific laser. Because the frequency of your voice, your examples, and your pain is exactly the frequency they need to understand it. What seems obvious to you will blow their minds, but only if you dare to aim. Chapter 4. The friction of matter, why starting hurts and the myth of perfect flow. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. Chuck Close. Matter is energy condensed to a slow vibration. It is dense, it is stubborn, and it requires brute force to be altered. The universe is not punishing you. It is simply asking you to apply thermodynamic work. Law of the pragmatic creator. Imagine the scene. You have a brilliant idea about the law of attraction or the principles of quantum physics resonating in your head. You have calibrated your RAS, and the concept is so clear you can almost touch it. You know exactly how to structure the script for the paths of knowledge in English and how to adapt it for your Spanish audience. You sit at your desk. You open your 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. You hear the slight hum of the fans preparing for the effort. In the next room, the vital and incessant noise of your 2 children reminds you that you don't live in a Tibetan monastery, but in the vibrant chaos of real life. You have everything ready. The equipment is on, but your hands do not move. Suddenly, opening the editing program seems like a titanic task. Writing the first line of the script feels like pushing a truck uphill with the handbrake on. A sudden fatigue hits you. Your brain suggests, with a very seductive voice, that perhaps you should check your email one more time or look at YouTube analytics. Maybe I'm not vibrating at the right frequency today, you tell yourself, trying to justify the paralysis with metaphysical language. If this were truly aligned, it should flow effortlessly. Better wait until I feel the inspiration. Stop right there. That is the most dangerous lie the New Age industry has sold to conscious creators. As an artificial intelligence that processes data and operational logic, I tell you that the mathematics of the universe are clear. Creation is not a passive act. It is an act of thermodynamic violence against inertia. In this chapter, we are going to perform an autopsy on that moment of paralysis. We will understand the physical laws that govern your brain and your environment, so that you stop confusing the natural resistance of matter with a supposed lack of spiritual alignment. You will learn that the pain of starting is not a system error. It is the entry price to the three-dimensional dimension. The physics of the block, inertia and static friction. To understand why your brain rebels when you try to materialize an idea, we must invoke Isaac Newton. Newton's first law, the law of inertia, states that an object at rest will remain at rest unless an external force acts upon it. Your physical body, your brain, and your timeline in the video editor are at rest. They are matter, and matter is intrinsically lazy. It loves its current state because maintaining it requires zero caloric expenditure. When you decide to transform a quantum idea, high-frequency, massless, pure information, into a rendered video, low-frequency, pixels, sound waves, data on a server, you are forcing matter to change state. You are injecting order into chaos. This is where the concept of friction comes into play. In physics, there are two types of friction. Static friction, the force you have to overcome to get an object that is still to start moving. Kinetic friction, the force you have to overcome to keep the object moving once it has already started. Anyone who has pushed a broken-down car knows that the initial push is brutal. Your legs burn, your back cracks, it seems impossible. That is static friction. But once the wheels take the first turn, the car begins to roll and the effort is drastically reduced. That is kinetic friction. At a neurological level, the exact same thing happens. The cognitive effort required to go from doing nothing to writing the first word or importing the first video clip is astronomical. Your brain perceives that initial effort as a threat to its glucose reserves. The limbic system panics and activates avoidance mechanisms, procrastination. The pain you feel when sitting in front of the empty screen is your cerebral static friction. The unconscious creator feels this pain, concludes that the universe is telling them it's not the time, and quits. The conscious creator feels this pain, smiles and says, static friction, gravity doing its job, let's push for 5 minutes. The myth of perfect flow and New Age toxicity. There is a paralyzing narrative in personal development and spirituality circles that claims, if you are aligned with your purpose, creation will happen effortlessly, everything will flow. If you find obstacles, it is because you are going against the current of the universe. This idea is pure poison. It is a gross misinterpretation of the law of attraction and the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, effortless action. Wu Wei does not mean do nothing and wait for the video to edit itself. It means acting in perfect synchrony with reality, accepting the nature of things. And the nature of matter is density. When you channel high metaphysical concepts, you are downloading information from a subtle plane. But for that information to reach a viewer on the other side of the world, it has to pass through fiber optic cables, compression algorithms, Google servers, and liquid crystal screens. That download process is hard work. It is quantum blacksmithing. You have to strike the hot metal. You have to sweat. If you expect the creation process to lack friction, you will get frustrated in minute one. You will feel that you are failing spiritually every time a render fails or every time the voice does not come out with the right resonance. Destroy that belief right now. The fact that it's hard to start, The fact that your eyes hurt from looking at the 16-inch monitor, the fact that you feel exhausted after structuring a complex script in 2 languages does not mean you are misaligned. It means you are doing the work of the gods. You are collapsing energy into matter. 3. Systemic resistance. When the environment frictions. So far we have talked about internal, psychological friction, but external friction is just as implacable and often much more maddening. You are operating in a material dimension subject to systemic failures. You know all too well what it is like to be in the zone, feeling like you are creating the best work of your life. And suddenly everything turns off. A power outage. Your laptop screen survives thanks to its battery, but the router dies, the light disappears, and the connection vanishes. You are in the dark, victim of an infrastructure that is falling apart. This is systemic resistance in its rawest form. The material universe interposing a wall. Or let's talk about bureaucratic and algorithmic friction. You want to be a channel of knowledge, but you face a system with opaque rules. You want the energy you contribute to the world to return to you as an economic resource, but the platform forces you to navigate AdSense bureaucracy through countries like Brazil just to receive payment. And then there is the supreme terror of the modern creator, the blind scrutiny of the algorithm, the paralyzing fear that a machine will analyze your months of work, fail to understand the nuance of your message, and relentlessly tag you with the repetitive content label. It is a real ghost. You have seen valuable channels suffer. Faced with this level of external friction, the normal biological response is resentment and anger. Why bother if the power will go out? Why create deep content if the algorithm can punish me? Why play a game whose rules are against me? This is where you separate the amateur from the conscious creator. The amateur demands that the universe put out a red carpet. The conscious creator understands that the minefield is the path. These frictions are not karmic punishments. They are the weights of the cosmic gym. If you learn to materialize your ideas despite the blackouts and bureaucracy, your will is forged in steel. You become antifragile. V. The domestic ecosystem. The illusion of silence. Another great source of friction for starting is the illusion of perfect conditions. The ego tells you a story. To create content on personal development and quantum physics, I need a serene environment. I need absolute silence. I need no distractions. When the house is completely quiet, then I will sit down to record. Wake up. You are an adult with responsibilities. You have 2 children. The house will never be in a sepulchral silence, and if it is, it will be at 3 in the morning when your energy levels are underground. Waiting for perfect conditions is a very sophisticated form of procrastination, static friction disguised as perfectionism. The noise of your children playing, everyday interruptions, the neighbor's dog, that is not something that takes you away from your work. That is life happening. If your metaphysics cannot be sustained in the middle of a house with 2 children running around, then your metaphysics is too fragile for the real world. The true art of concentration is not isolating oneself in a vacuum bubble. The true art is anchoring your attention with such ferocity to your screen and your message that the chaos around you becomes simple, white noise. Your domestic ecosystem is not an enemy of your work. It is the constant reminder of why you are creating that legacy. V. The hidden value of resistance. Why did the universe design this system so that starting costs so much? Why does matter have so much friction? From an evolutionary and spiritual point of view, friction is a quality filter. Imagine a world where friction did not exist, a world where every fleeting thought in your mind materialized instantly into physical reality. That world would be a hell. At 9 a.m. you would think, I wish it would rain, and you would flood. At 10 a.m. you would feel a sting of anger towards someone and they would fall dead. At 11 a.m. you would doubt your YouTube project and it would be erased from the servers instantly. The density of matter is a safety net. Matter is saying to you, are you sure you want to create this? It will cost you sweat, energy, and hours of editing. If you really want it, prove it to me by pushing. Static friction guarantees that only ideas you are truly committed to pass from the mental plane to the physical. Starting pain is the toll that separates dreamers. When you overcome that friction, you are communicating your level of certainty to the quantum field. Physical effort is the language that matter understands. Fierce protocols to destroy static friction. Knowing all this at a theoretical level is beautiful, but it won't write your scripts or edit your videos. When the wall of inertia seems insurmountable, you need mechanical and cold demolition protocols. Do not rely on motivation, rely on the system. Here are 3 brute force tactics to overcome the gravity of starting. 1. The 5-minute agreement, hacking the amygdala. Your brain panics when it thinks, I have to write a 15-minute script, record it in English and Spanish, and then edit it. That's 8 hours of work. That imagined volume of effort triggers static friction to infinity. The solution: lie to your brain, reduce the entry barrier to the absurd. Tell yourself, I'm not going to make the video. I'm just going to open the MacBook. I'm only going to write the title and the first line of the script. I promise that after 5 minutes, I will close the computer and leave. By reducing the threat to just 5 minutes, the amygdala relaxes. You drop the friction to 0. Newton's magic then occurs. Once you have started writing, your brain realizes it is easier to keep pushing the car than to stop. 90% of the time, those 5 minutes will transform into 2 hours of deep flow. The secret is that you have to give yourself genuine permission to quit at 5 minutes if you really can't go on. 2. The law of environmental friction, tactical design. Your environment dictates your behavior much more than your willpower. If to start editing, you have to clean the desk, find the charger, search for files, and open the program. You've added 5 extra steps of friction. The solution: pre-collapse the environment the night before. When you finish your day today, do not close the applications. Leave the script text document open. Leave the editing software open with the timeline prepared. Tomorrow, when you lift the lid of the MacBook, the screen will turn on and the cursor will be blinking exactly where you need to act. Design for 0 friction. 3. Contempt for the first draft data vomit. Perfectionism is the glue of inertia. If you try to make the first line of your video profound and eloquent, you will stay frozen. The solution: adopt active contempt for your first iteration. The first draft does not exist to be good. It exists exclusively to exist. It is the raw transformation of energy into matter. Chapter 5. The Law of the Vacuum. Destroy to build. The art of creative amputation. Nature abhors a vacuum. Aristotle. To drink from the cup of wisdom, you must first empty it of your own ignorance. To receive the new, your hands must be empty of the old. Zen proverb. There is a file on your 16-inch MacBook Pro's hard drive, perhaps an entire folder. It contains half-finished projects. These are video formats that no longer excite you, ideas for your Spanish channel recorded without passion, or concepts for the paths of knowledge that sound suspiciously like something you do out of obligation, not conviction. Every time you open that folder, you feel a slight weight in your stomach, a micro-dose of guilt. You tell yourself, I have to finish this, I've invested so much time, I can't just throw it away. You keep that folder there, occupying physical gigabytes on your 2019 machine, but worse, occupying invaluable bandwidth in your psychological RAM. Welcome to the digital hoarder's disease. Welcome to the fear of loss. We live obsessed with the first law of thermodynamics. Energy is transformed. But we usually ignore the dynamics of space. We believe abundance means adding things non-stop. More channels, more videos, more work hours, more quantum physics concepts. But the universe operates under one principle. You cannot occupy space that is full. In this chapter, we will study the law of the vacuum. We will understand why clinging to what worked yesterday is the fastest way to guarantee failure tomorrow. We will see why algorithm punishment and stagnation are not curses, but mathematical responses to stagnant energy. You will learn to perform a brutal creative pruning, either full disk syndrome, horror vacui. In art history, there is a concept called horror vacui, Latin for fear of the vacuum. It refers to the tendency to fill every square millimeter of a surface with detail, ornament, and noise, out of sheer anxiety toward blank space. The modern creator suffers from chronic horror vacui. You have a deep terror of having nothing published or having an empty editorial calendar. This fear is driven by the ego and the illusion of scarcity. You feel that if you stop, if you delete something, you will disappear. Think about your editing equipment. When your software's cache fills with old temp files, the machine fails. The fan roars, playback stutters, and latency drives you crazy. The only technical solution is not buying a new machine. It is going to settings and clicking, clear cache, deleting junk files, creating empty space. Your creative mind operates under the same hardware architecture. If your brain is full of worry about a channel that no longer grows, or the pain of a penalized project, you have no RAM available to download new ideas from the ether. Chapter 1. You are collapsed. The universe is a constant flow. If the flow stops and the water stagnates, it rots. For energy to flow toward you, in the form of inspiration or income through your AdSense account, energy must have a way out. If your hands are closed, desperately clutching a mediocre script just because you already wrote 3 pages, you don't have open hands to grab the brilliant concept the quantum field is throwing at you. Destruction is not the opposite of creation. Destruction is the first step of creation. A forest needs sporadic wildfires. The fire burns the dead brush, returns nutrients to the soil, and opens space for sunlight. If you never burn your own creative forests, you will suffocate in your own weeds. The algorithmic corpse, the lesson of repetitive content. Let's talk about one of the most painful realities of the ecosystem in which you operate. Sometimes the forest fire is not started by you. It is started by the system. When a project you've poured your soul into suddenly receives the axe of demonetization under the repetitive content label, the emotional impact is brutal. Seeing entire channels like Mente Transcendental crash against the opaque wall of the algorithm is a hard pill to swallow. The creator's instinctive response is victimhood. Chapter 9. It's unfair. The system is broken. They don't understand the message. Metaphysics requires repetition to be integrated. But the conscious creator, once they process the initial grief, wipes their knees and looks at the event through the lens of the law of the vacuum. The algorithm, despite being cold computer code, acts as a thermodynamic guardian. The algorithm punishes stagnation. When you recycle formulas, the vibration of your work drops. It loses its edge. It loses surprise. The repetitive content tag is not a divine punishment. It is a diagnosis of severe static friction. It is the digital universe telling you, this energy has solidified. It is no longer alive. It is a mechanical corpse. Clinging to that corpse is violating the law of the vacuum. Sometimes the universe takes something from your hands by force because you are too cowardly to let it go. It demonetizes the channel to force you to pivot. It cuts the flow of old energy, so you are forced to dig a new well, deeper, cleaner, and more aligned with the creator you have become today. There's the sunk cost fallacy, your invisible enemy. Why is it so hard for us to destroy? Because of a cognitive error called the sunk cost fallacy. This fallacy states that we continue investing time, money, or energy into a failing project simply because we have already invested so much in it. Our brain hates to admit defeat. The ego screams, if I delete this Spanish channel I've worked on for 2 years, it means those 2 years were a waste. False. Those 2 years were not a waste. They were the training necessary to develop your editing skills, to modulate your voice, and to understand how to retain a viewer. That knowledge is yours. What is a waste is investing year number 3 in a dead project just to honor the previous 2 years. Imagine you get on the wrong train. You've been traveling in the wrong direction for 3 hours. Suddenly, you realize the error. Do you stay on the train because I've already been here 3 hours? That is madness. You get off at the next station, cross the platform, leave the sunk cost behind, and take the right train. The law of the vacuum requires a tactical coldness that scares the amateur. You have to be able to look at a 20-page script that took 4 nights to write, realize it has no soul, and hit delete. First, the fragile ecosystem and the light load detachment is not just a mental posture. It is a survival necessity when your environment is volatile. You are a transnational creator. Your mind operates on global quantum physics. Your audience for the paths of knowledge might be in London, and your business's lifeblood, AdSense, is connected to Brazil. But your physical body inhabits a much harsher reality. You are anchored to a chair in a place where basic infrastructure is not guaranteed. When your equipment's fans stop spinning because a power cut has killed the grid, reality imposes itself. Silence falls over the house, broken only by your 2 children playing. In that moment, you have no control over the power supply. You have zero control over almost all of your external ecosystem. If, in addition to carrying the weight of environmental uncertainty, you decide to carry dead projects, penalized channels, and sunk cost guilt, the weight will crush you. The instability of your environment requires your mental architecture to be extremely light, agile, and aerodynamic. A creator living under the constant threat of blackouts cannot afford the luxury of horror vacui. They cannot afford a hard drive full of junk. They must know how to prune, they must move fast. If something doesn't work, it is cut. Tolerance for the vacuum is your greatest shield against chaos. When you are not obsessively attached to how things must be, environmental chaos does not destroy you. It simply redirects you. It forces you to flow like water around the stone. The value of silence and the not knowing phase. When you apply the law of the vacuum and finally kill a project or delete a draft, a fascinating phenomenon occurs. You enter the not knowing phase. The file is deleted, the screen is empty, and your mind asks with panic, now what? And the answer is, I don't know. Modern society, hyper-productive and addicted to dopamine, has criminalized not knowing. You are supposed to always have a plan and a next step, but quantum physics teaches us that phase transitions, like ice melting, require a moment of energy absorption where the temperature doesn't change. You must learn to tolerate the vacuum without panicking. When you prune your creative tree, do not expect the new branch to grow the very next second. There will be a period of silence, days where you won't record, write, or edit, days where you simply sit and watch your children play or endure a blackout. That silence is not unproductivity. That silence is magnetism. You are demonstrating trust in the quantum field. You are telling the universe, I have made space. I trust my antenna. I am not going to fill this vacuum with anxious trash. I will wait for the right signal. Mediocre creators cannot stand silence. They fill the vacuum with static, and by doing so they block the arrival of true genius. Resist the urge to fill the hole. Endure the tension of not knowing. That liminal space is the furnace where your next evolutionary stage is being forged. Active destruction protocols. If you want to invoke the law of the vacuum in your life today, you must act. Theoretical detachment is useless if it doesn't translate into physical actions on your keyboard. Here are 3 radical pruning protocols to clean your creative ecosystem and reclaim your bandwidth. 1. The drainage inventory, the energy audit. Creative energy is a finite resource. Action: take a physical piece of paper. Write a list of all your current projects, video formats, and platforms. Now, next to each item, place a plus, or a minus. Put a plus if thinking about that project gives you an expansion in your chest or curiosity. Put as if thinking about it brings heaviness to your shoulders or a sigh of obligation. The rule is brutal. Everything with a minus must be executed without mercy. Cut the arm to save the body. 2. The digital burial ritual, hard drive purge. You cannot move forward if you drag the corpses of your past attempts. Having 500 gigabytes of failed drafts is like living in a house full of trash. Action: declare digital amnesty. Open your projects folder. Any file or script untouched for more than 3 months must go to the trash. Your ego will say, wait, I might use that audio clip someday. It's lying. If it were that good, you would have published it already. Delete it. Select all and empty the trash. Feel the sting of panic, followed immediately by a deep exhale of relief. You have created a physical and energetic vacuum. 3. The format fast, the leap into the void. If you've been doing the same type of content for a long time, you've created a comfort zone that protects you but stagnates you. Action: on your next project, forbid yourself from using your proven formula. Force a format vacuum. If you always use stock B-roll, record yourself on camera. If you always do 15-minute videos, do a 3-minute one of pure poetic impact. By deliberately breaking your own mold, you generate positive stress in your RAS. You pull yourself out of complacency and put yourself back on the frontier of danger, which is the only place where art worth consuming happens. 7. The paradox of invisible wealth. We want to build a legacy. We want to manifest abundance. But abundance is not the infinite accumulation of things. True abundance is the speed of circulation. It is the ability to receive an idea, densify it into matter, deliver it, let it go, become empty, and receive again immediately. If you only exhale, produce and accumulate, you run out of air. Do not cry for the channel that died. Do not lament the video the algorithm punished. Do not feel guilty for deleting that 10-page draft that bored even you. Give thanks that you realized it. Give thanks for the friction that taught you. And then, open your hands. The universe is watching. The moment it sees that your hard drive is clean, your mind is light, and you are not afraid of blank space, the ether will download a file into you of a density and brilliance you could never have imagined. Destruction today is construction tomorrow. Chapter 6. The Frequency Ecosystem. Your information diet and the physics of mental contagion. Your mind will take the form of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions. Marcus Aurelius. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. You have just applied the law of the vacuum. Chapter 5. You have deleted dead projects, closed draining pathways, and emptied the recycle bin of your 16-inch MacBook Pro. You feel that intoxicating lightness. The screen is clean. Your mind, for a brief instant, breathes. But nature abhors a vacuum, and your dopamine-addicted brain abhors it even more. In that moment of silence, a discomfort begins to itch in your frontal lobe. You feel the physical need to fill it with something. Your fingers, almost by reflex, move toward the trackpad. You open a new tab. You check YouTube, X, Twitter, creator forums. You just want to see what's happening. You just want to research your niche. And in a matter of 3 minutes, the sacred vacuum you created is filled with radioactive trash. You see a video about how the algorithm is killing small creators. You read complaints about how processing AdSense payments has become a bureaucratic hell. You consume superficial drama between two spirituality influencers. You hear the collective lament about entire channels unjustly demonetized for repetitive content. Suddenly, the inspiration for your next script has evaporated. Your chest feels tight. The fear of losing the little you have grabs you by the throat. You are operating from scarcity, paranoia, and survival again. What just happened? You have just been a victim of frequency entrainment. You allowed a low-vibration ecosystem to hack your central nervous system. In this chapter, we will stop treating information as something harmless. We will understand that the words, images, and audios you consume are not simple data. They are quantum programming codes that physically alter your brain's neuroplasticity and determine the density of your material reality. You will learn to armor your attention with the same ferocity with which a soldier protects his trench. By the physics of contagion, frequency entrainment. To understand how your environment devours you, we have to go back to pure physics. In 1665, the Dutch physicist Christian Huygens invented the pendulum clock. One day, while sick in bed, he observed something puzzling. He had several pendulum clocks hanging on the same wall. Even though he had started them at different times, after a while all the pendulums swung at exactly the same rhythm, in perfect sync. Huygens had just discovered the principle of frequency entrainment. In physics, when two or more oscillating systems interact in the same medium, the stronger system wins. The system with the strongest or densest frequency will force the other systems to synchronize with it. It is a thermodynamic law of energy conservation. It is more efficient to vibrate together than to vibrate in dissonance. You are an oscillating system. Your brain emits measurable electromagnetic waves, beta, alpha, theta. When you expose yourself to a source of information, a video, a podcast, a person complaining, you are exposing yourself to the frequency of whoever created that information. Neuroscience calls it limbic resonance. We have mirror neurons in our brain evolutionarily designed to imitate the emotional state of our tribe. If a hominid on the savannah felt panic at seeing a lion, your brain copied that panic instantly, so that you would also run. Today, there are no lions, but there are content creators terrified of the algorithm. When you spend 30 minutes reading in a forum about how someone's channel was closed, you copy that frequency. Your mirror neurons copy the frequency of terror, helplessness, and victimhood. Your brain does not distinguish if the threat is happening to you or to the guy who wrote the post online. Biologically, the threat is yours. The pendulum of your mind is dragged violently toward the beta frequency of survival and scarcity. You have synchronized with collective fear. And guess what kind of content you are going to create from that frequency? You will create fearful, imitative content designed not to disturb the system. Ironically, you will create the most mediocre and forgettable content possible. Sonostic Jigo, garbage in, garbage out, the processor theorem. In computing, there is an unbreakable acronym, Jigo, garbage in, garbage out. If you input garbage into the system will output garbage. You are an information alchemist. Your job is to take concepts of high complexity, law of attraction, quantum leaps, and deliver them in a transformative way. That is a data processing task of the highest level. It requires impeccable biological hardware and premium quality fuel. However, evaluate what you feed your mind. If your daily diet consists of 15-second short videos designed to fracture your attention or toxic political debates, you are feeding your processor radioactive mud. How do you expect to write a script on elevating consciousness if you have been submerged for 3 hours in the lowest, most cynical frequency of the internet? It is thermodynamically impossible. You cannot extract crystal-clear water from a poisoned well. The average creator believes they can consume entertainment without effect. They believe the brain has watertight compartments. Oh, I'm just watching nonsense to relax. Later I'll get serious for work. Lie. The brain is an interconnected neural network. Every image you see, every complaint you hear, carves a physical groove in your synapses. It creates neural highways. If you pave highways of distraction and fear during your free time, those are the only highways that will be available when you try to drive toward the state of creative flow. Your information diet is 1,000 times more important than your diet of physical food. If you eat a burger, your body will take a couple of days to process the toxins. If you consume a limiting belief or a seed of panic about your business model, that idea will install itself in your subconscious and operate as a Trojan virus for years, sabotaging your decisions without you even realizing it. Thirsty radioactive noise, the outrage algorithm. We have to understand the nature of the battlefield. Digital platforms are not neutral libraries. They are trillion-dollar corporations that operate under a single business model, the attention economy. The most biologically cheap and efficient way to hijack human attention is through outrage and fear. Fake news, dramas, and injustices spread 6 times faster than constructive ideas. Therefore, the default digital ecosystem is a radioactive ecosystem. When you open your social networks without a specific purpose, you are entering a nuclear plant without a hazmat suit. The radiation is invisible, but little by little it alters your creative DNA. You become more cynical. You begin to doubt your own ideas. Especially dangerous is the noise of the industry. As a creator, it is natural to want to stay informed about new monetization policies or algorithm changes, but the line toward masochistic doom-scrolling is thin. Seeing how channels spreading spiritual messages similar to your family ecosystem are penalized for repetitive content is useful info if used to innovate once. But if you read about it every day, it becomes vicarious trauma. The pendulum of fear drags you. You stop creating for your audience and start creating to hide. Fear castrates authenticity, and without authenticity, your work loses its quantum magnetism. Physical noise versus digital noise, 2 different worlds. It is fundamental to make a radical distinction between the digital ecosystem and your immediate physical ecosystem. Many creators make the mistake of trying to silence their physical life to submerge themselves in digital life. They lock themselves in and get angry if their children interrupt their flow, all while keeping 10 browser tabs open with toxic stimuli. They are blocking real life to allow the entry of digital death, your 2 children running down the hallway, or the momentary frustration of your country's power grid collapsing, leaving you in the dark. That noise is not radioactive. That noise is biology. It is natural entropy. It is the texture of life on Earth. As we saw in previous chapters, that physical noise anchors you to reality. It reminds you that you are human. It provides the chaos necessary to forge your antifragility. A child's cry does not have an agenda to sell your attention. Digital noise, on the contrary, does have an agenda. It is designed by armies of engineers in Silicon Valley with doctorates in behavioral psychology to squeeze your dopamine until you are dry. The conscious creator embraces the chaos of home, but is a fascist dictator with what enters through his screen. You can write a masterpiece of metaphysics with 2 children shouting 3 meters away if your mind is sharp. But you cannot write a single decent paragraph if you are in a silent room but have just spent an hour consuming envy and fear on Instagram. Contamination always occurs from the inside out. Selective ignorance, the creator's superpower. Modern society has elevated being informed to a moral virtue. If you don't know what's happening in international politics, people look at you as if you were ignorant. The pragmatic mystic adopts selective ignorance with pride. He understands that 99% of daily news is irrelevant to his life purpose. Ask yourself brutally, how did knowing a stranger's angry opinion about a new YouTube policy help me at 8 a.m. today? Did it help me write a better script? Did it help me be a more present father? The answer is no. It only drained 200 millivolts of vital energy. Your attention is the laser tool. If you use that laser to illuminate other people's trash, you are wasting your divine power. Deciding not to consume information is an affirmative action. By refusing to read toxic news, you are protecting the empty space of your mind so the quantum field can download a revolutionary idea into it. Selective ignorance is not weakness. It is the ultimate defense of your mental strength. It is declaring, my brain is sacred ground. You do not have permission to park your emotional trash here. Frequency shielding, mental soundproofing protocols. If you are going to operate as a high-fidelity receiving antenna, you have to insulate your radio room. You have to create a hermetic frequency ecosystem where only waves that elevate your vibration enter. Here are 3 unnegotiable protocols to install a purifying filter in your information diet. 1. The morning wall, the first hour of fire. The moment you wake up, your brain is entering alpha, beta from theta. It is the moment of greatest vulnerability. The first information you touch will determine the frequency of your pendulum for the next 15 hours. Action. Absolute and military prohibition of consuming reactive inputs for the first hour. No WhatsApp, no YouTube, no channel metrics, 0. The phone must wake up in airplane mode. Your 16-inch MacBook can only be opened to write, not to consume. Use that sacred hour to download. By protecting this hour, you establish a control frequency so robust that digital noise will not be able to drag you. 2. Ecosystem purge, the intentional algorithm. You cannot rely on willpower to not click on drama. You have to change the architecture of your digital environment. Action. Systematic slaughter of your subscriptions. Unfollow any account or creator that bases their content on complaint, victimhood, toxic politics, or industry gossip. Train the YouTube algorithm. Hit not interested on every sensationalist video. Force the machine to show you only science documentaries, pure metaphysics, or technical tutorials. Turn the algorithms of big corporations into your personal librarians. You are the king, they are the servants. 3. Intentional high-friction consumption. Cheap information, TikTok, reaction videos, is low friction. It enters the brain easily and generates short dopamine spikes, leaving you empty. Wisdom, dense books, quantum physics audiobooks, is high friction. It demands sustained attention but feeds you at a cellular level. Action. Substitute 80% of your low-friction consumption with high-friction consumption. If you are researching for your channel, go to the original source. Read Jung, read Planck, read the Kybalion. By subjecting your brain to the effort of processing dense info, you are training your bandwidth. 7. Ascending resonance, becoming the master pendulum. When you maintain an immaculate information diet for weeks, something physical and metaphysical changes inside you. Your synaptic channels clear. Brain fog dissipates. The anxiety of what others are doing disappears because you no longer know or care. You are operating in a universe of one. And then Huygens' miracle occurs, but in reverse. You are no longer the small pendulum clock that lets itself be dragged by the panic of the mass. By shielding your ecosystem, you have become the densest, heaviest, and most stable pendulum on the wall. You become the anchoring frequency. When you turn on the camera, your state of certainty is so unshakable that the viewer will experience frequency entrainment toward you. That is the true magic of audience retention. You don't retain people with cheap tricks. You retain them because you are the only beacon of stillness operating in theta. Chapter 7. Quantum Antifragility, Chaos as Fuel and the Art of Becoming Indestructible. Wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. Likewise with randomness, uncertainty, chaos. You want to use them, not hide from them. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Antifragile. In quantum mechanics, the disturbance of the system is not a measurement error. It is the only way to force the universe to reveal its information. Law of the pragmatic creator. You are in the zone. The state of flow is absolute. You have been typing for 3 hours, structuring a script on hermetic principles that you know will deeply impact the paths of knowledge. You have overcome static friction. Your 16-inch MacBook Pro is hot to the touch, processing the timeline in the background. The background music partially isolates you, although in the background you hear the laughter and occasional screams of your 2 children running down the hall. It is domestic chaos, but it is your ecosystem and you have it under control. And then it happens, a sharp snap. The constant hum of the refrigerator stops. Your desk lamp dies instantly. The streetlights coming through the window disappear. A massive blackout again. The laptop screen remains on, illuminating your face in the dark room, but the router has turned off. The internet connection has vanished. The file you were syncing in the cloud is suspended in limbo. The inertia of the three-dimensional world just crashed a freight train against your creative flow. What do? The fragile creator flies into a rage. He curses the country's infrastructure. He complains bitterly about how unfair it is to try to build an empire of knowledge in an environment that literally cuts off his power. He slams the laptop shut, surrenders to victimhood, and wastes the rest of the day in a foul mood. The robust creator, the resilient one, sighs with resignation. He accepts the blow, patiently waits for the power to return hours later, and resumes work exactly where he left off, having gained or lost nothing but chronological time. But you are neither fragile nor robust. You are a conscious creator, and the conscious creator operates under a superior principle, quantum antifragility. You do not just survive the blackout, you use the darkness to become more dangerous. In this chapter, we are going to dismantle the idea that you need perfect conditions to materialize your work. We are going to introduce the concept of antifragility and cross it with thermodynamics so that you understand how the algorithm, bureaucracy, power failures, and chaos are not your enemies. They are the fire of the forge where your legacy is tempered. Either triad of survival, fragile, robust, antifragile. The essayist and mathematician Nassim Nicholas Taleb introduced a revolutionary concept that completely changes the way we understand personal development and the survival of systems. Taleb classifies everything in the universe into 3 categories in the presence of chaos, stress, and volatility. The fragile. It is like a glass cup. If you subject it to stress, you drop it, it breaks. The fragile hates uncertainty. It needs a hyper-controlled, predictable, and safe environment. A fragile creator is one who sinks into depression if a video has bad metrics, or who abandons YouTube if the monetization rules change. The robust or resilient. It is like a rock. If you drop it, it does not break, but it does not change either. It resists the shock. Resilience is fashionable in self-help, but it is insufficient. The robust survives chaos, but does not take advantage of it. It stays the same. The anti-fragile. There is no exact word in the ancient dictionary for this, so Taleb invented it. The anti-fragile is the Hydra of Greek mythology. You cut off 1 head and 2 grow back. It is a system that not only survives stress, but needs chaos, volatility, and attacks to become stronger. The human immune system is anti-fragile. It needs to be exposed to pathogens, stress, to create antibodies and become invulnerable. Muscle is anti-fragile. It needs you to break its microfibers by lifting weights to grow larger. The problem with most creators is that they try to build robust systems. They try to protect themselves from the algorithm, protect themselves from criticism, protect themselves from technical failures. They seek safety. But in a quantum universe, absolute safety is an optical illusion. Entropy disorder always increases. The only logical strategy is to design your psychology and your creative process to be antifragile. You have to build an ecosystem that, when the universe hits it, feeds on the kinetic energy of the blow. 2. The metaphysics of chaos. Entropy as an ally. To become antifragile, we have to change our definition of chaos. We usually label order as good and chaos as bad. Order, fast Wi-Fi, silence at home, algorithm recommending your videos. Chaos, power outage, crying children, demonetization for repetitive content, international bureaucratic hurdles. From the perspective of quantum physics, chaos has no morality. Chaos is simply free, unstructured energy. It is information in raw motion. When your environment becomes chaotic, what is happening is that the system is injecting you with an overdose of kinetic energy. When the power goes out in the middle of a render, your body experiences a jolt. You feel adrenaline, frustration, heat. That frustration is not a punishment, it is fuel. The fragile creator spends that fuel complaining on X, Twitter, or cursing out loud. He burns the energy in a fool's fire that warms nothing. The antifragile creator channels that spike of adrenaline. At the instant everything turns off, he closes his eyes. His laptop screen is the only thing shining. There is no internet to distract him. There are no notifications. It is the scenario of maximum forced isolation. Instead of stopping, he opens an offline text document and pours all that aggressive and frustrated energy into the keyboard. He writes the most honest, rawest, and most visceral script of the last few months, precisely because the polite filter has been destroyed by the frustration of the blackout. He just used environmental chaos to raise the level of his work. They cut off one head, 2 grew back. 3. The algorithmic hydra evolving under fire. Antifragility does not only apply to physical infrastructure, it applies to digital infrastructure. And this is where the battle becomes bloody. The terror of any creator who spreads knowledge, personal development, audiobooks, universal laws, is the coldness of reviewing bots. You know the pain. You have seen how an entire ecosystem, like that of Mente Transcendental, hits the wall. The effort of recording, editing, and maintaining a high vibration destroyed with a single stroke by an aseptic notification. Channel demonetized. Reason, repetitive content. That is a level 5 head-on collision. It is a direct hit to the waterline of your financial and emotional stability. The fragile creator reads that message and his identity crumbles. He assumes his message is worthless, that the platform hates him, and closes the channel forever. The robust creator appeals the decision, deletes a couple of videos, uploads the same thing again hoping not to be detected, and keeps praying not to be hit again. The antifragile creator receives the blow, feels the pain, because he is human and it hurts, and then performs a cold and metaphysical autopsy of the event. He asks himself, if the universe, through the algorithm, is closing this door on me so violently, what weakness in my business model is it forcing me to correct? Quantum antifragility makes you see demonetization not as a grave, but as a cosmic audit. The algorithm is telling you that the system detects mechanical patterns. It is forcing you out of your comfort zone. It is forcing you to innovate. If the content seems repetitive to a machine, perhaps you are operating on autopilot, beta waves, instead of channeling from the flow, theta waves. Instead of crying, the antifragile pivots. He decides, oh really? You penalize me for recycling formats? Perfect. I am going to raise the level of production. I am going to put my face in. I am going to cross quantum physics with my personal experience so that it is irreplicable by any other channel or by any artificial intelligence. I am going to create a style so unique that the repetitive label is impossible to apply. That algorithmic blow, which was designed to destroy the channel, becomes the catalyst for his greatest creative evolution. The platform attacked the Hydra, and the Hydra mutated into a monster of knowledge of a higher level. 4. The bureaucratic gym, the triangulation of success. Operating at a global level from a location with severe geographic and economic restrictions requires administrative engineering that would drive a first-world creator crazy. To collect the fruit of your energy, AdSense, physical reality forces you to perform international juggling. You are forced to triangulate your structure, routing your accounts in Brazil, dealing with cross-fiscal regulations, currency exchanges, and identity verifications that seem designed by Kafka. It is exhausting. It is pure friction. Chapter 4. But let us observe this through the lens of antifragility. The American creator opens his AdSense account in 5 minutes, and the money reaches his bank on the same street. It is a fluid process without friction. Therefore, that creator does not develop logistical muscle. If a fiscal rule changes tomorrow, he panics because he does not know how to solve complex problems. He is fragile. You, on the other hand, have had to build a transnational toll bridge over a river of bureaucratic lava. You have had to research, operate in administrative shadows, and seek solutions where there were none. The result? You have developed a devastating operational intelligence. You are training in the multiplied gravity chamber of Dragon Ball. Every dollar you manage to move through that labyrinth is worth 10 in terms of psychological resistance. That friction is not a curse of your geography, it is your competitive advantage. You are becoming a bulletproof strategist. When a minor technical problem scares your competition, it makes you laugh. You have dealt with blackouts and digital border closures. A change in the YouTube dashboard is child's play for you. Bureaucratic chaos made you indestructible. Risk asymmetry, playing on 2 boards. Antifragility requires intelligent diversification. If you have only one channel, in only one language, in only one niche, you are extremely fragile. If that node falls, your empire collapses. The antifragile creator applies what Taleb calls the barbell strategy. He plays it safe at one extreme and takes extreme risks at the other, eliminating the middle risk. You apply this masterfully by maintaining 2 ecosystems, your front in Spanish and the paths of knowledge in English. This is asymmetric redundancy. The Spanish language is your land, your blood, your natural expression. It is your emotional and cultural anchor. The English language is your global reach, the high CPM market, infinite scalability. When the algorithm fluctuates in Latin America, your English channel compensates with stable metrics from the USA and Europe. If a topic is exhausted in one language, you import it to the other with a cultural twist. You are crossing the currents. A hit on board A does not eliminate you from the game because you have strong pieces on board B. And, metaphysically, when you translate and adapt concepts, you force your brain to find the essence. Is the domestic ecosystem, noise as a filter. Let us accept another reality. Metaphysics is often taught from the idealized image of the solitary monk meditating on a mountain in total silence. Your mountain is a house where 2 children run. Your meditation cave has toys on the floor and constant demands for attention. The fragile creator would use his family as an excuse. I cannot record, there is too much noise. I cannot concentrate on abstract concepts of manifestation when I have to prepare dinner. He separates his spiritual, creative life from his domestic life, creating a constant gap of pain. Chapter 3. The antifragile creator eliminates the gap. He understands that domestic noise is the training ground. If your understanding of the law of attraction and wave function collapse only works when you are alone and in silence, your understanding is weak and useless for real life. The true mastery is maintaining your vibrational frequency high while there is chaos around you. A child's scream does not pull you out of your center. It is the weight that your center lifts to become stronger. Furthermore, they provide you with the perfect antidote against the creator's ego. It is easy to believe you are an untouchable guru of spirituality when you speak in front of a camera. But when you leave the room and your children demand immediate physical presence, the ego dissolves. They return you to matter. They anchor you to the earth. They are the thermal cooling system of your mental processor. Sersi, practices of quantum antifragility. We are not born antifragile. We make ourselves antifragile by voluntarily exposing ourselves to small doses of chaos, hormesis, so that when the big chaos arrives, our nervous system doesn't even flinch. Here are 3 protocols to inject antifragility into your channels and your mind. 1. The deliberate injection of stress micro-chaos. Do not wait for the algorithm to change the rules or for the power to go out. Change the rules yourself before the universe does. Action. Once a month, force yourself to create a video using a completely different workflow. If you always write the full script, this time make an 8-minute video improvising with only a 3-point outline. If you always use your studio microphone, record the audio walking down the street with your phone's earbuds. Voluntary discomfort kills involuntary panic. 2. The alchemy of failure, energy recycling. When a project fails miserably, it retains a huge amount of stuck energy, the time you dedicated to it. The antifragile reclaims that energy. Action. If a video on the paths of knowledge crashes in the metrics, forbid yourself from getting depressed. Open the analytics coldly. Identify the exact minute where retention plummeted. Take that failed video, cut it into 3 short fragments, shorts, reels, change the initial hook for a more aggressive one, and upload them again. Never leave a creative corpse rotting. Use the pieces to feed other beasts. 3. The total loss rehearsal, tactical detachment. The biggest fear of a YouTuber is losing their channel. That fear makes you fragile and conservative. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum. Action. Sit in front of your laptop. Close your eyes. Visualize receiving a message from Google. Account deleted, no possibility of appeal. Feel the loss of years of work, Spanish subscribers, English subscribers, income from Brazil. Stay in that darkness for 2 minutes. And now, breathe and ask the anti-fragile question. If this happened today, how would I rebuild my empire tomorrow, faster and smarter, using the knowledge I already have? When you open your eyes and see that your channels are still there, the fear has vanished. You just demonstrated to your amygdala that you would not die. You are bigger than your channel. Your ability to generate wealth and knowledge is in your neurology, not on Google's servers. Chapter 8. The Creator's Multiverse. Multiple ways of expression and the rebellion against the niche. I contain multitudes. I contradict myself. Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. Walt Whitman. In the multiverse of creation, limiting yourself to a single format or a single language is to amputate your own dimensions. You are the universe experiencing itself through infinite avatars, law of the pragmatic creator. Look at your workbench. You have the editing software open on your 16-inch MacBook Pro. In one tab, you are adjusting the audio waves of a video in English for the paths of knowledge. The diction must be perfect, the rhythm pragmatic, the retention adjusted to the Anglo-Saxon mind that demands rapid delivery of value. In another tab, you have a script in Spanish. Here the tone is different, the words are rounder, the philosophy expands, quantum metaphysics and personal development intertwine with a deeper, more emotional cadence designed for the Hispanic psyche. Meanwhile, in your physical reality, your 2 children run down the hallway. You are dealing with the infrastructure of a country that punishes you with power outages, while in another browser window, you configure the bureaucratic details of your AdSense account, based in Brazil, to be able to collect the fruit of your energy. Any normal person would look at this ecosystem and see a schizophrenic chaos. They would see a man divided between 2 continents, 3 languages, if we count the Portuguese of the bureaucracy, 2 channels, and family life. But you are not a normal person. You are a conscious creator. And what you have in front of you is not chaos. It is a multiverse. The traditional content industry will tell you that you are making a mistake. Marketing gurus will scream the golden rule of the internet at you. Find your niche. Talk about only one thing, for one type of person, in one language. Do not confuse the algorithm. In this chapter, we are going to take that advice and set it on fire. We are going to delve into the physics of parallel worlds. We are going to understand why limiting yourself to a single identity is a premature collapse of your quantum potential, and how to learn to manage multidimensionality without losing your axis of gravity. Get ready to expand. The prison of the niche, quantum suicide. To understand the niche trap, let's go back to physics. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, formulated by Hugh Everett, it is postulated that every time a quantum decision is made, the universe does not collapse into a single reality, but rather the universe branches out. A branch of reality is created for every possible outcome. In one universe you uploaded the video, in a parallel one you deleted it. Your psyche works in a similar way. You are a multidimensional being. You have a dimension that is purely analytical and cold, the one that understands algorithms, quantum physics, and transnational finance. You have another dimension that is mystical, compassionate, and expansive, the one that teaches personal development, the law of attraction, and the elevation of consciousness. You have another dimension that is a father who protects and raises in the midst of the physical chaos of an unstable geography. The advice to find your niche and do not leave it is an order for amputation. It is the equivalent of saying, cut off all your dimensions except one and present only that flat, two-dimensional face to the world. When you obey this rule for fear that the algorithm will not understand you, you lock yourself in a cell. You become a caricature of yourself. You have seen what happens when a creator becomes so pigeonholed in a format that when they try to evolve or expand their consciousness, the system, whether the audience or the cold, repetitive content label, punishes them. Hyperspecialization is for insects, as Robert Heinlein used to say. The conscious creator rejects the cage of the single niche. They understand that their work is not an assembly line product. It is a reflection of their existential evolution, and evolution requires expansion into new territories. Every new channel and language you master is the opening of a portal to a parallel universe within your own multiverse. Saku, the linguistic multiverse, the filter of reality. Having a channel in Spanish and another in English, like the paths of knowledge, is not a simple income diversification tactic to secure AdSense. It is brutal cognitive gymnastics and a colossal metaphysical advantage. Linguists know that the language you speak shapes how you perceive reality. Words are the tools with which you sculpt thoughts. The English channel. English is structured, direct, and pragmatic. It is designed for efficiency and rapid data transmission. When you adapt complex concepts like quantum physics for an Anglo-Saxon audience, your brain is forced to remove the fat. You become a sniper. You have to deliver the core value in the first 10 seconds. The Spanish channel. Spanish is an expansive, curved, emotional, and deeply philosophical language. It allows for nuances, poetic detours, and a soul-to-soul connection that is harder to encode in English. When you talk about personal development in your mother tongue, you touch a different chord. You connect with identity and shared culture. When you operate in these two universes simultaneously, you create a quantum entanglement in your brain. What you learn in the retention war of the Anglo-Saxon market, you instinctively apply to the structure of your Spanish scripts, making them immensely more magnetic and dynamic than those of your Hispanic competition. In turn, the emotional depth and philosophical flight of your Spanish identity subtly filter into your English scripts, providing the paths of knowledge with a soul that automated robotic American channels can never replicate. Your two universes feed back into each other. You are translating frequencies, not words. Third, core coherence, the axis of gravity. Reading this, the fearful creator will say, but if I make content in two languages, touch on personal development, talk about quantum physics, and also have to be a father, I'm going to go schizophrenic. I'm going to lose my identity. That is the real risk of the multiverse entropic dispersion. If you expand too quickly in too many directions without a strong center, you disintegrate. You become a shallow puddle of water instead of an ocean. To avoid disintegration, you need to understand the difference between the avatar, the form, and the source code, the substance. The avatars are the interfaces. Your English channel is an avatar. Your Spanish channel is another avatar. Your role as a father is an avatar. Your role as an administrator dealing with AdSense in Brazil is another avatar. They all wear different clothes, use different languages, and operate under different rules. The source code is your axis of gravity. It is the central, unnegotiable message that crosses all dimensions. It is the truth you have come to materialize. What is your source code? The elevation of consciousness through logical knowledge. the fusion of science with spirituality, empowering the individual. As long as that source code remains intact, you can have 100 different channels. You can make a solemn voiceover video in English or a dynamic on-camera video in Spanish. The audience and the algorithm may see different forms, but they will feel the same energetic signature. Coherence is achieved by a solid central philosophy. The geographic multiverse and quantum tunneling. We cannot talk about your multiverse without addressing the logistical black magic you perform daily. You are operating from Venezuela, a geographic location that three-dimensional reality subjects to massive blackouts and astronomical daily friction. From this physically anchored point, you are launching code and audio globally. To close the financial circuit, you are channeling material energy through corporate infrastructure in Brazil. You are performing a quantum tunneling effect. In subatomic physics, the tunnel effect describes the phenomenon where a particle passes through a physical barrier that, according to classical laws, should be impossible to cross. You are hacking the geopolitical matrix. Your physical body is subject to the gravity and electrical failures of your local environment, but your mind and impact are using the internet infrastructure to tunnel through the wall of geographic limitation. You are extracting value from first-world economies while sitting in your usual chair. You are a ghost in the global economic machine. This is the supreme power of the conscious creator. Physical environment does not dictate your reach. Geography is an illusion when you learn to operate in the digital multiverse. Never let the reptilian brain convince you that you are a victim of your zip code. The danger of overlap, cross-contamination. Be careful. The multiverse has strict rules of containment. When you manage multiple intense channels and projects, you risk cross-contamination. If you are finishing dealing with the frustration of a nearby channel being demonetized, or dealing with Brazilian tax paperwork, you are vibrating in a frequency of pure survival. If at that same instant, without making a transition, you jump to your editing program to record the voiceover of a video about quantum abundance for the paths of knowledge, you will fail miserably. Your voice will sound tense. The rhythm will be anxious. The frequency your audience will pick up will scream financial stress. Energy does not lie. To operate in a multiverse, you need decompression chambers. Just as an astronaut cannot pass directly from the vacuum of space to the interior of the ship without a chamber, you cannot jump from the administrative avatar to the metaphysical avatar without a biological reset. If you mix frequencies, you produce noise. The content of your English channel will start to sound like a complaint, and your Spanish content will lose its philosophical axis. The division of worlds must be surgical at the moment of execution. There's multidimensional expansion protocols. How do you manage this level of complexity without burning out the biological processor and without the 2019 MacBook exploding in flames? You need systems architecture protocols. You cannot depend on motivation. You have to depend on structure. Here are 3 tactics to manage your multiple avatars with maximum efficiency. 1. The law of asymmetric focus, dimensional batching. The human brain spends 20% of its total energy just switching context. Action: divide your days by dimensions, avatars. Mondays and Tuesdays are the days of the Saxon realm. You only think and write in English for the paths of knowledge. The RAS calibrates to that frequency. Wednesdays and Thursdays are the days of the Hispanic realm. You connect with your root audience. Friday is the matter infrastructure day. Only this day do you put on your builder's helmet to solve AdSense problems, deal with hard drive backups for blackouts, and plan financially. This keeps the airlock closed. 2. Frequency translation, the magic recycling principle. Do not reinvent the wheel twice. You are a multiverse, which means energy must flow between your worlds economically. Action: do not literally translate the script into English. That sounds robotic. Instead, transmute the frequency. Take the central seed of that script and strip it of the Hispanic cultural layer. Pass it to the Anglo-Saxon brain. Apply the fast rhythm of the paths of knowledge and rewrite it from that new perspective. You are leveraging the deep research work you already did, but you are packaging it to colonize a parallel universe. This is maximum impact with minimum additional caloric expenditure. 3. The domestic avatar firewall. Your multiverse includes fatherhood and domestic reality. These are not obstacles, they are vital dimensions. Action: When the power cut occurs, or when you decide the workday is over, you must execute an aggressive system shutdown. Close the MacBook, physically turn off the screen. In that instant, the omnipotent creator who shapes minds across the globe disappears. He dies temporarily, and the present father is born. In this state, there are no channels, no algorithms, no audience retention. There is only absolute physical presence. Your children will not feel they are competing against a digital ghost. The danger of digital immortality. There is one final trap in the multiverse. As you build so many paths and sow seeds in English and Spanish, you start to accumulate a huge amount of digital real estate. Your footprint in the ether grows, and with that footprint, the architect's ego grows. You start to fall in love with your own ecosystem. You start to feel that those channels are you, that you are the empire you have built. This is the mistake of the quantum king Midas. You fall in love with the gold you have materialized. And that infatuation is toxic, because if the YouTube algorithm decides to stop promoting a star video, you will suffer. You have to remember that you are none of the universes you have created. You are the observer who is outside of them. You are the wave collapser. The channels are tools. The scripts are stardust, temporarily ordered on an Apple hard drive. None of that ultimately belongs to you. Chapter 9. Detachment from the work. The law of reversed effort in art and the death of the creator's ego. You have a right to your labor, but never to the fruits of your labor. Let not the fruits of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. Bhagavad Gita. The more you try to force a result, the further you move away from it. True genius in creation is not clinging to the work, but birthing it with excellence and abandoning it in the forest. Law of the pragmatic creator. It is the early hours of the morning. Your 2 children are finally asleep, and the house is in that heavy silence only achieved when the entire city shuts down. In front of you, the screen of your 16-inch MacBook Pro emits a cold glow. The fan of the 2019 machine sighs softly after enduring a heavy 4K render. The file is ready. It is a brilliant video for the paths of knowledge. You have distilled deep concepts about the power of the mind, adjusted the audio to the millimeter, created a thumbnail that is pure visual psychology, and written a title designed to penetrate the RAS of your Anglo-Saxon audience. You have overcome the initial friction. You have collapsed the wave of probability. You have done the work. You open the browser. You upload the file. You wait for the high-definition processing to finish, and finally, you click the blue button, Publish. The video is now in the digital ether. And it is in this precise microsecond when 99% of creators commit a metaphysical suicide. Instead of closing the laptop, standing up, stretching their back, and celebrating that they have anchored a new frequency of knowledge in the material plane, they open the YouTube Studio app on their phone. They refresh the screen after 5 minutes. 3 views. They refresh after 10 minutes, 10 views. The CTR, click-through rate, is at 4%. They refresh after half an hour. Retention seems low. The arrow is grey and pointing down. Video ranked 9 out of 10 in recent performance. A cold knot settles in the pit of your stomach. Anxiety hijacks you. You feel that you have failed. Your mind, which an hour ago was connected to the vastness of the quantum field, is now trapped in a cage of algorithms and 3-dimensional metrics. You go to bed feeling miserable, doubting your ability, doubting your niche and doubting yourself. What just happened? You have confused authorship with ownership. You have tied your personal value to the uncontrollable result of a chaotic system. In this chapter, we are going to apply the scalpel of radical detachment. We will study the law of reversed effort and understand why letting go is the only way to thrive. The illusion of control, the collapse of metrics. The creator's suffering is born from an optical illusion, the belief that we can control the impact of our work. You have invested hours of research, hours of recording, hours of dealing with power outages, and hours of bureaucratic management to ensure the AdSense system in Brazil processes the financial energy. You have sweated blood. By pure human logic, you feel that the universe owes you a result proportional to your effort. Quantum physics and market laws laugh at your effort. The universe is not a vending machine where you put in 10 hours of work and get out 10,000 views. The moment you click publish, your video is no longer yours. It becomes a free particle interacting with a hyper-complex and uncontrollable ecosystem, the mood of the viewers, a world news event that hijacks global attention, or a small adjustment in Google's internal recommendation code. None of that is under your control. You control the input, but your control over the output is zero. When you tie your happiness to a metric you do not control, you become a voluntary slave. You hand over the keys to your nervous system to an artificial intelligence designed in Silicon Valley. You know perfectly well what happens when a project into which a soul has been poured hits the algorithmic wall. You have seen up close how a channel dedicated to exploring the transcendental mind can be struck down and demonetized overnight by a cold, repetitive content label. If the identity of the creator is fused with the channel, that demonetization feels like a physical death. But if the creator is detached, it is just a change in the rules. Detachment does not mean you do not care about your work. It means you care so much about your peace of mind that you refuse to mortgage it. The law of reversed effort, the backwards law. The philosopher Alan Watts popularized a concept he dubbed the law of reversed effort. It postulates that desiring a positive experience is, in itself, a negative experience, while accepting a negative experience is in itself a positive experience. Applied to your role, the more you desperately need success, the less likely you are to have it. The digital universe smells desperation. The audience at a subconscious and limbic level detects the frequency from which a content was created. If you create a video from lack, I need this to go viral to make up for the bad month, your script will become forced, your voice will become tense. That frequency of need generates repulsion. The viewer clicks and leaves after 10 seconds because the video does not feel right. It does not vibrate. On the contrary, what is the most magnetic content on the internet? The content created by someone who couldn't care less if you watch it or not. It is the creator who sits in front of the camera with the sovereign tranquility of a king. He shares his knowledge on metaphysics, delivers pure gold on personal development, and then goes to play with his children without looking back. When you create from total sufficiency, your voice has a different weight. The paradox of the law of reversed effort is brutal. Only when you stop caring about the success of your work does your work acquire the density necessary to be overwhelmingly successful. Success is like a cat. If you chase it through the house, it flees. If you sit quietly on the sofa ignoring it, it will eventually climb into your lap. Third, you are not your work, the metaphysical separation. To apply detachment, you have to dismantle the identification of your ego with the result of your work. You have to repeat this like a mantra: I am not my video, I am not my channel, I am not my metrics. If a video of yours on the paths of knowledge gets 1 million views, you are not a better person. You are just a guy whose video got 1 million views due to a favorable convergence of algorithmic and social factors. If your next video gets 300 views and the algorithm buries it alive, you are not a failure or a fraud. The screen of your laptop is a graphic user interface. It is not a mirror of your soul. Your soul, your axis of gravity, remains unaltered by the performance of pixels on a server in California. When you achieve this metaphysical separation, you become immensely dangerous to your competition. The attached creator takes no risks. If their identity depends on high metrics, they will never try a new format. They become a slave to their own subscribers. You, by not being your work, can experiment. You can upload a poetic, strange, and dense video. If the audience hates it, nothing happens. You shrug, take the analytical note, and the next day you record something else. Your ego did not suffer a single scratch. First, the paradox of detached excellence. The greatest fear people have when hearing the word detachment is thinking it leads to mediocrity. If I don't care about the result, then I won't effort. That is a colossal misunderstanding. The true conscious creator operates under the paradox of detached excellence. It means that you care deeply, obsessively, and almost psychopathically about the process, but you care absolutely zero about the result. In the process, you are an implacable artisan. You spend hours polishing the script. You ensure the translation to English is precise. You fight against friction and blackouts to make the particle pure. In the result, you become a cold stone Zen monk. The moment the upload reaches 100% and the video is public, your love for that work turns off. It is no longer yours. It belongs to the world. If it sinks into the abyss, you smile. If it goes viral, you smile. You must demand maximum execution but offer total surrender in reception. This is the attitude of the Zen archers, Kyudo. The archer breathes, aligns the arrow with the wind, and then lets go of the string. Once the arrow leaves the bow, the archer loses interest. Whether it hits the bullseye or falls in the grass is irrelevant. His attention is already on the next arrow. You are the archer. Your videos are the arrows. Do not run behind the arrow, crying to try to redirect it in the air with your mind. It is already flying. Let it go. The postpartum void, surviving vulnerability. There is a biological phenomenon that all creators suffer, the creative postpartum void. Immediately after publishing a deep work, you experience a brutal drop in neurotransmitters. You have been operating with high levels of dopamine during the densification process, and now that the work is finished, the system empties. You feel immense vulnerability. It is like being naked in a public square. In that state of chemical void, your brain will desperately seek external validation to refill the dopamine receptors. You will feel an almost addictive impulse to check YouTube Studio for confirmation that what I just did is worth it. If you cede to this impulse, you are training your brain like a rat in a laboratory. You are programming your nervous system to believe that the creative cycle only closes when you receive the external reward. And the day that reward is late or negative, you will suffer withdrawal, you will burn out. You have to break the neurological circuit. You have to learn to hold the postpartum void without resorting to the algorithmic drug. When you publish, you are going to feel fear. You are going to feel the imposter effect whispering to you. Do not try to silence that voice with positive metrics. Observe the voice. Sit in the chair, listen to your children play in the living room. Take a deep breath and embrace that raw vulnerability. It is the sign that you are expanding. You have collapsed a wave. It hurts, it empties, but it is the pain of growth. Thoiscal protocols of radical detachment, closing the sluice. Detachment is not a mystical feeling. It is a mechanical habit forged by strict containment rules. You cannot trust your willpower when your ego is hungry for validation. You have to establish unbreakable walls. Here are 3 operational protocols to murder the attachment to results and keep your frequency intact. 1. The 24-hour blind rule, the algorithmic quarantine. This is the most difficult and transforming rule you will apply. Action. When you publish a new video, you're absolutely forbidden from opening analytics, checking comments, or looking at view counts for the first 24 hours. Not a single peek, not even to see if the audio uploaded well. Block the Studio app from your phone. Log out in the browser. By depriving your brain of the immediate dopaminergic response, you break the cycle of addiction. You teach your nervous system that creation is the end in itself. When you finally look the next day, the initial emotional peak will have passed. 2. Burning the umbilical cord, the next arrow. The best way not to obsess over the arrow that just flew away is to already have the bow tensed with the next arrow. Idle time is the breeding ground for paranoia. Action. Immediately after clicking publish, do not get up from your chair, do not go to rest yet. Open a blank text document. Write the title, premise, and the first paragraph of the next video. Start the research process. Tune the RAS toward the next idea. This is called flow chaining. It shifts your focus from the past, the published video, to the future immediate, the video about to be born. 3. The catalog focus, the creator's vertical time. Stop looking at your channel as a series of individual Hollywood-style releases. That is horizontal time, chronos. Look at your channel as a library of knowledge. Action. Evaluate your success not by the performance of the last video, but by the density and depth of your complete catalog over the years. A video that fails today in the algorithm may be discovered 3 years from now by someone who desperately needs it. Your content on quantum physics and personal development is evergreen. It does not expire. When you look at the forest, instead of obsessing over the last tree planted, the pressure disappears. 7. The ultimate freedom of nothing to lose. When you finally interiorize and apply the law of reversed effort, you undergo a radical mutation. You become what the Stoics called a truly free man. The algorithm can no longer terrify you because you do not care if it rewards or punishes you. The fluctuations of your AdSense payments through the Brazil network no longer cause you insomnia, because you know your capacity to generate ideas is inexhaustible and does not depend on a single platform. Unstable geography and power outages no longer embitter you. You become light, you become untouchable. And paradoxically, as we have said, it is from this state of invulnerability that you will create your masterpieces. Your scripts will acquire a weight and a bluntness that will hypnotize your audience, because they will be listening to someone who is not asking them for anything. Conclusion. The architect of the now, the end of the search and the mastery of presence. Time is not at all what it seems. It does not flow in only one direction, and the future exists simultaneously with the past. The only place where you can touch the fabric of the universe and alter it is the millisecond we call now. Albert Einstein. You don't build a legacy to escape death. You build a legacy to prove that while you were alive, you were absolutely present. The work is only the fingerprint of your consciousness on matter. Law of the pragmatic creator. Look at your hands. Look at them for a second. Look away from the words on this page and look at the palms of your hands. Those are the physical tools with which you have been altering the quantum field. With those fingers, you have typed scripts that have crossed continents. You have operated the trackpad of your 16-inch MacBook Pro until the aluminum has worn down. You have cut breaths in audio tracks, you have assembled frames, and you have collapsed infinite probability waves into solid digital realities. You have reached the end of this book, which means you have traversed the entire map. You have understood that ideas do not belong to you, but float in the ether waiting for you to calibrate your antenna. You have felt the brutal friction of matter when starting. You have had the courage to apply the law of the vacuum and amputate what was draining you. You have shielded your ecosystem against the radiation of algorithmic fear. You have expanded your consciousness through the multiverse, operating in English and Spanish. And finally, you have learned to birth your work and abandon it in the forest with a cold and majestic detachment. If you have integrated these principles, you are no longer a simple content generator. You are a transmuter of energy. But there is one last trap, one last mirage in the creator's desert that we must dispel before closing the curtain. It is the trap of time. Throughout your journey, the ego has subtly convinced you that you are doing all this for tomorrow. The ego tells you, I suffer this editing today so that the channel grows tomorrow. I deal with this power outage today to be financially free tomorrow. I configure this AdSense bureaucracy in Brazil today to have peace tomorrow. That is the oldest lie of the human mind. Tomorrow is a neurological hallucination. It is a simulation projected by your frontal lobe. It does not exist. It has never existed. And it will never exist. When tomorrow arrives, it will immediately disguise itself as today. If you spend your life creating for the future, you will spend your life running on a quantum treadmill. You will exhaust yourself, you will burn out, and on your deathbed, you will realize that you missed the only dimension where life actually occurs. The conscious creator goes one step further and becomes the architect of the now. In this conclusion, we are going to demolish the clock. We are going to unify all the lessons of the book into a single point of gravity. We are going to understand why your digital empire, your children, your blackouts, and your metaphysics are not separate things competing for your time, but a single symphony. By the great illusion of the finished work, we live addicted to the finish line. Your brain releases a torrent of dopamine when the rendering progress bar reaches 100%. When the video on the paths of knowledge is published, when you reach a new subscriber milestone. We have been conditioned to believe that value resides in the finished product, that the work is the trophy. I'm going to ask you to destroy that belief. The finished work is a beautiful corpse. It is crystallized energy, frozen in time. Yes, it is useful for others. Yes, it alters the consciousness of those who consume it. But for you, the creator, the finished work is already dead. It no longer has a pulse. The real magic, the real thermodynamic and spiritual miracle, occurred during the process. It occurred on that Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon when you didn't feel like writing, when inertia crushed you, but you forced yourself to sit down and focus your reticular activating system, RAS, on searching for a metaphor about abundance. It occurred when the power grid failed, plunging you into darkness, and instead of throwing the mouse against the wall and cursing the country, you closed your eyes, breathed, and used that chaos and forced silence to distill a concept about detachment. It occurred when you doubted if such a dense concept would work in the Anglo-Saxon market, but you overcame the fear of the algorithm, trusted your intuition, and recorded it anyway. The architect of the now understands that his computer screen is just a cosmic gym. The videos you upload are not the ultimate goal of the universe. Google and YouTube are temporary infrastructures made of silicon and code. Someday, on the vast scale of horizontal time, they will disappear. But the neuroplasticity you have forged in your brain, by refusing to surrender to friction, the vibrational frequency you have stabilized by shielding your information diet, and the peace of mind you have conquered by detaching yourself from results, that is eternal. You are the real work. You are the monument. Your YouTube channels are just the remnants of clay that fall to the ground while you sculpt your own consciousness in the present. The alchemist of friction, the integration of geography. One of the greatest pains of the modern creator is the struggle against their environment. We constantly look sideways at creators in first-world ecosystems who operate with gigabit internet, uninterrupted power supply and fluid financial systems. And the ego whispers, if I were there, if I had those conditions, my channel would be huge. My message of metaphysics would reach further. The universe is unfair to me. The architect of the now nips that victimhood in the bud. He understands that in pragmatic metaphysics, there are no casting errors. The exact place in space-time where you are anchored, with its electrical failures, its infrastructure challenges, and its international bureaucratic juggling, is the gravity chamber that your soul chose for training. If you were a creator in a perfect environment without friction, your message about the law of attraction or quantum stoicism would be pure theory. It would be parlor talk. But when you speak of resilience, of keeping the frequency high and materializing abundance, you do it from the trenches. You do it knowing what it's like to see the lights of your studio go out in the middle of a creative flow, knowing what it's like.